Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's June 7th, 2021, and today I'm going to talk about one of the techniques we use for plant propagation, a simple layering technique. And we have a whole plant propagation playlist that you can refer to go over some of these techniques and have some of the images on there as well. But today I've thrown on my GoPro helmet cam, and yesterday I went out and started using staples to hold down to begin the simple layering technique. And I'll go more into that in just a moment. But a little bit of a progress update. So we're in Zone 5A in Oswego, New York, not too far from Lake Ontario. And we have frosts that go all the way up until Memorial Day. Many people in this area plant after Mother's Day. We don't, because we've gotten stung twice, we don't get our transplants in until after Memorial Day. So this past week we got our beds all set and got our plants in the ground. And there'll be some videos coming up talking about demonstrating some of the techniques that we use. And we have playlists of all the videos that we've done in the past about these techniques. So into what I did yesterday was I threw my GoPro helmet cam on, and unfortunately the GoPro camera lens had a spludge on it on the right side. I didn't notice it until after I was reviewing the video, but I think it's good enough, I apologize for that, for at least seeing the technique that we're using. So you may recall earlier in this spring, along the western garden plot where the kennel panels are, the chain link fencing is, I pulled back. This is a raised garden bed area, and there are many videos we've done talking about using compost and wood chips and sheet mulching, all of those things. And this area is raised up with kennel panels, the 6 foot tall chain link fencing kennel panels that are setting on top of wood chips and all. And last year we had beans planted into the wood chips, so we grew those, and that was adding nitrogen to the wood chip soil as it was decomposing. And this spring what I did was I used Bumblebee, the mini excavator, and pulled back mid-section. So if we had a crown of wood chips like this, what I did do, I took Bumblebee and made a trench and made it like 2 humps, camel humps. And in the center is what I did was I did a mounding or an oblique angle to the gooseberry plants that were there. So after separating the wood chips and making a trench in a sense, I laid the wood chips down at an angle. So the root ball was lowest and the plant was on approximately a 45-degree angle, and some of the plants were just sticking up, which would start to leaf out and bud out. So these gooseberries were just, their leaf buds were just starting to emerge at that time. Then I took soil from a different part of our property that is laden with different noxious weeds that have small roots that are still viable, and they keep sending up new growth as well. But I took that soil because that was the only soil I had at the time, and I covered up the root mass and most of the woody material of the gooseberries. So one of the ways we can propagate plants is by mounding up the soil on many plants like your ribes, your various gooseberries, your currants, your hosta berries. You could do this with grapevines and all. So as you mound up on the bush, as the bush is coming up from, let's say this is the ground level and the roots are below ground level, and you have the stems of the bush sticking up, you can actually fill the soil up higher than the base of these stems without doing an air layering technique. And these little nodes where the leaves would come out would start to send up roots, and then you can separate that into multiple plants. Well, I did that last year, and I was able to propagate quite a few gooseberries. So by taking these plants that already had multi-stems coming up, vertical stems coming up from the ground, from the root mass, putting them in on an angle like this and burying the soil up, each one of those stems that was coming up, since half of it was covered in soil, are going to send up new growth as well. So I did that, and now we have several inches of new soft wood sticking up from the surface of the ground and the wood chips at this time. So the next phase, in order to double my, more than double, to get compounded interest in a sense, more and more plants from it. Each one of those new growth stems that have come up, what I'm doing is I'm using some of our weed mat staples that we use to hold weed mats down. Now these are the ones that are rusty, and I only recommend using galvanized or aluminized or aluminum garden staples, depending on what your soil type is, because you don't want the rust, and pulling them back through a weed mat just destroys the weed mat. But they're still good for plant propagation. So I took a whole bunch of the garden staples, and as these new green shoots are coming up, I'm laying them down on their side, and I'm stapling them down parallel with the surface of the ground. By doing this, what's going to happen is, and I've explained about the nodes and internodes in previous videos, but every place that a leaf is going to come out or a new shoot is going to come out, as that's laying on the ground and it's exposed to soil, there will start to be some new roots developing at the nodes, and in between the nodes is where I put the staple, and on the other side, once the roots come out, a new stem will come up. Then later on you can cut in between, you can cut in the internodal area, the place between each one of these nodes, and get a new plant from it. To do it this way, when you're really doubling instead of just being, doing this in the spring and then harvesting and getting all of your new plants in the fall, this really takes about a full year. So it takes a few weeks to get the new shoots to come up, and these are all soft wood material, very flexible, easily bends and all. And you want to get it before it gets too firm, because they can snap, and they can snap from the branch that they're originating from. And if you walk in the forest now or out around some of the fruit trees, you'll see lots of new green growth coming up, and that's the material that I'm talking about. Now some of them will get damaged, especially right now. We're in the middle of a heat wave. This is our third day above the 90s. We also have a drought as well, so you really want to have moisture containing soil there. So with all the wood chips around, that helps to hold the soil. But with the soil being bare right now, as I'm laying these down, the evaporation from the leaf surface, transpiration, really draws a lot of the moisture out of the leaves. So you got to be real careful when you're doing this and keep them pretty moist. And as soon as new little shoots start coming up, I'll start building up some soil over the surface of it. And when they get several inches, I want to put some mulch down there to really help to decrease evaporation from the soil surface, to maintain the moisture in the soil. So what you're going to see next is just some video of me going through and laying down the new green growth. Already earlier in the season, we buried the plants on a 45-degree angle with just little bits of green sticking up, or bare stems. They've leafed out and send up new shoots. Now we're taking those new shoots, laying them down parallel with the surface of the ground, stapling them in place. There will be some damage, there will be some desiccation, dehydration with it, but if I can get out there once a day and just hit them with a little bit of water, that would help. If I had a misting system, it'd be game-changing. We could definitely have not definitely, but we'd probably have a good 95-96% productivity from it. In other words, new plants from each one. So from this way, instead of getting 10 or 20 plants out of one plant, we may be able to get 50 or 60 plants out of each plant. It takes a bit longer, but it seems to work pretty well, at least from the means that I've done it so well. These aren't big, robust plants. When we cut them out, they're a single pot, but another year later, it'll be a good size saleable plant. So without any further ado, we'll go to the GoPro footage. There'll be some of me talking during the whole process. I think it's just going to be a dry end as well. If you found this video of value, please give us a thumbs up, share it with your friends. If you shop on Amazon, please use our link in the description below. That helps us out. We get a small little commission as well. Share it with your friends. And if you want to get notified when we post more videos, hit the bell icon. Thanks so much for watching, folks, and have a great day. Bye-bye now. Well, it's June 6, 2021, and earlier this season I pulled the wood chips back in this area. I took some soil from over in a different part of our forest and brought that over. Unfortunately, it's laden with weeds, so I've got to click some of the weeds out of here. But what I did do was I took some of our gooseberry plants that I wanted to propagate, and I laid them on their sides going down, and then I covered them up with the soil. And you could see a lot of them have emerged, and what I'm going to do today is, besides getting some of the weeds out of here, show you one of the ways, the techniques of layering. So you can do mounding or layering, and this is stool layering is one of the ways. Or in some cases, if these were taller, you can do serpentine layering, which is basically we're just going to bend down some of the softwood that's grown up and hold them down and see what we can do. So I'm going to grab my shovel here first and disrupt a couple of these weeds that are in here. So right over here on the sides, unfortunately some of these, the soil that I got, oh dang it. So get as much of these weeds out of here as possible. So these weeds here, I can just pull up a hand. And so here's some gooseberries. Now this one's a little too short to do just yet with this one. But some of these guys that are laying up on the sides, take a couple of my older, what I'm going to do is, while they're still soft like this, is just pin them down like this. Now they'll still lengthen out. See if I can see them. They'll still elongate. But one of the things they'll do is each one of these side little shoots on them will start to come up, and then I can put soil down. They're going to reach for the sky. And I can put soil on them after a few days when they shoot up some more. This one's a little bit too, well, I guess I could lay this one over a little bit. And it'll send verticals up now, going up towards the sky. Just work my way down the bed, pulling out some of the weeds. So I'll lay this one to one angle. Now, each one of these will send up new lateral shoots, like each one of these are new shoots coming up. Try not to break them at the point there. You can see there's a little gooseberry starting right there. There's a piece of the root that's going to keep sending up little shoots. See, I already laid some soil down over these ones the other day to see if they're flexible enough. Gotta grab some more pins. This is a job for those non-galvanized wasted staples to hold down weed mats. So every place where there's a little node like this, that's going to send down roots. So I try to put the pin in internodal. So this is a node where the leaf comes out, this is a node where the leaf comes out, and these tips will start coming up, and then a new shoot will come up at each one of these nodes, if I'm doing this well. And I think the thing that really helps us out the most is when we've got when we have the plants on an angle where just part of them stick up, and more shoots will come up all along in here if things work out well. This one I could actually start putting soil in each one of these spots. And I'm just going to use soil from either doing the microgreens, so I'm reusing soil over and over again with each one of these jobs. Oh, that one I pinched a little bit much. Gonna need some more staples. Ah. Now, of course, moving this mulch back, this is going to allow, if we really have a significant drought now, this is going to allow these plants to become somewhat desiccated, dehydrated, and that could be a major issue. So these ones I can come back and put soil on top of them within a few days. Same with this one here. If you go back and look at the video, this is all new growth. These were just sticks sticking up from the plant. And so each one of these will be new plants. There'll be at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new plants out of that stem right there. I think that's it for today. It's just layering, one technique of layering. Sometimes we start off mounding and then simple layering. And I am doing some air layering over there on the on my Illinois mulberry that I've had trouble with. So I'm doing some air layering over there. I'll show you that later. And doing some grafting of that one onto my Russian mulberries as well. We'll look at those.